Hello everyone. Welcome to session 8 of IS Baba's rapid revision series of 500 high probable topics for prelims 2020. I'm Preetham Reddy and I'll be dealing 15 important topics which are very crucial for prelims examination this year in each session. Our first topic of the day, that is Flamingo Festival held at Pulicat Lake. So we already dealt with certain lakes like Osudu Lake in Tamil Nadu, Chilika and Ansupa Lake from Odisha in previous session. Okay, so we'll be dealing with Pulicat Lake. So Flamingo Festival was held at Pulicat Lake and also Nilapattu Bird Sanctuary in Andhra Pradesh. So you have to remember Pulicat Lake Bird Sanctuary and Nilapattu Bird Sanctuary. They both are in Andhra Pradesh. Okay, and this Flamingo Festival is held every year to promote tourism. So to promote tourism, and let's know about this Pulicat Lake. So Pulicat Lake is the second largest brackish water ecosystem. So already we saw in previous session that Chilka Lake is the largest brackish water ecosystem. Now this Pulicat Lake is the second largest brackish water ecosystem after the Chilika Lake. And this Pulicat Lake is located on the border of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, but 96% of the lake is in Andhra Pradesh and 4% in Tamil Nadu, and it is situated along the Coromandel coast. Okay, Coromandel coast. And this Pulicat Lake also encompasses this Pulicat Lake Bird Sanctuary. So both this Pulicat Lake Bird Sanctuary and Nilapattu Bird Sanctuary, you have to remember it is in Andhra Pradesh. Next important topic is Sena spectabilis. In previous year question paper, or I think 2018 UPSC question paper, UPSC had asked about Prosopis juliflora. Okay, so UPSC had asked like what is this Prosopis juliflora, which is often mentioned in news. So we can expect a question on same lines regarding Sena spectabilis. Okay, so Sena spectabilis is a invasive alien plant and it is found in Nilgiri biosphere region. Okay, and during 1992 itself, like Rio de Janeiro Convention on Biodiversity, way back in 1992 only, the convention had recognized that biological invasion of alien species of plants as the second worst threat to the environment. So CBD that time said the first important threat to environment is habitat destruction. Habitat destruction, and it said second important threat to environment is from the alien plant species. Okay, so the biological invasion of alien species of plants can threaten the environment. So right now this Sena spectabilis has seen as a threat to Nilgiri biosphere reserve region, and it can have indirect impact on Nilgiri tar, which is a endangered species. Okay, and this Nilgiri biosphere region has vegetations like mountain grasslands and shrub lands. Okay, and they are also called as Shola forests. So this Sena spectabilis, try to remember what is this Sena spectabilis. It is a invasive alien plant and it is found in Nilgiri biosphere region. Okay, next important topic is Marakkar. So this Marakkar community was recently, like it was provided in some news article. So they belong to the South Asian Muslim community. Okay, and they are found in parts of Indian states of Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Sri Lanka, and these Marakkars were a powerful maritime spice trading community during the medieval times. Okay, so they were the powerful maritime spice trading community during the medieval times, and these Marakkars, they traded with Myanmar, Malaysia and Maldives, Sri Lanka, such countries. So they traded during those days with South Asian and Southeast Asian countries. Okay, and the main important point what we have to remember is with the emergence of the Portuguese in India, these Marakkars were forced to take up arms and they enlist themselves in the service of Hindu king of Calicut that time. Okay, and they were popularly, these Marakkar naval chiefs were known as Kunjali Marakkars. Okay, so when they joined the service of the Hindu king of Calicut, they were serving as a naval chiefs and they were popularly known as Kunjali Marakkars. Okay, so who are these Kunjali Marakkars? They are the Muslim naval chief of the Calicut king during the medieval times. And this Marakkars, one important point, they are credited with organizing the first naval defense of the Indian coast. Okay, so next important people or the community is the Bru community or Bru or Riang people and their festival Hojagiri. So these brews, who are also known as Riangs, are spread across Tripura, Mizoram, and some parts of Assam. Okay, and you would have read a lot of articles regarding the brews. So every time they are in news because of the ethnic violence which they faced from the Mizos, and ethnic violence between Brus and Mizos saw more than 40,000 Brus fleeing to adjoining states and Tripura. Okay, and these Brus are the second most populous tribe of Tripura after the Tripuris. Okay, and Hojagiri is a folk dance which are performed in the state of Tripura by this Bru or Riang people. Okay, so next important topic is Mamlapuram. So Mamlapuram was important because second India-China informal summit was held in this Mamlapuram. You might be knowing the first informal summit held in Wuhan in 2018, and in 2019 it was like second informal India-China summit. It was held in Mamlapuram. And this Mamlapuram, so let's know about the Mamlapuram. It is also known as Seven Pagodas or Mahabalipuram, and it is situated along the Coromandel coast of the Bay of Bengal in Tamil Nadu. Okay, and this Mamlapuram was one of the two major port cities during the 7th century within the Pallava kingdom. So you have to know that Mamlapuram was associated with Pallava kingdom 7th century. Two major ports were important during the Pallava kingdom. Also, Mamlapuram gets its names from the Pallava kingdom ruler Narsimha Varman I. Okay, so Pallava king Narsimha Varman I, who was also known as Mahabali or Mahamalla because he was known as the best wrestler. Okay, so this Mahabalipuram or Mamlapuram gets its name from this Pallava kingdom ruler, that is Narsimha Varman I. Okay, and also this Mahabalipuram is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and this town is important because of various important structures such as Tirukadal Malai, descent of Ganges or Arjuna's Penis. Already UPSC has asked this particular question: descent of Ganges or Arjuna's Penis, Shore Temple, Varaha Cave Temple, and Pancharathas. Okay, so Tirukadamalai is a temple which is dedicated to Lord Vishnu, and descent of Ganges or Arjuna's Penis, it is a giant open air, like it is a giant air rock relief. Okay, so there is like descent of Ganges or Arjuna's Penis and even a elephant on that rock relief. Okay, and Varaha Cave Temple, so it is a small rock cut temple dating back to the 7th century. And we know about Shore Temple. So it is along the Bay of Bengal with the entrance from the western side away from the sea. Okay. And Pancharathas, that is 5 chariots. It is associated with the Pandavas, that is Arjuna, Bhima, Yudhishthira, Nakula, and Sahadeva. And also Draupadi chariot is found here. Okay. And this particular Mamlapuram also gets its name Seven Pagodas due to 7 important temples remnants were found in the Mamlapuram. Okay. Next important topic is Indian Data Relay Satellite System. So this Indian Data Relay Satellite System is important because ISRO is set to launch this new satellite series called Indian Data Relay Satellite System. And this Indian Data Relay Satellite System is important to track and maintain continuous communication link with Indian satellites, especially those in low Earth orbits. Okay, so especially those satellites which are in the lower Earth orbits, which have limited coverage of the Earth. And also this IDRSS is important to have a continuous communication link with GSLV Mark III. So GSLV Mark III, you might be knowing, it will be carrying the Indian astronauts to space in 2022. So this IDRSS will help to have a continuous communication link with that GSLV Mark III. Okay, and under IDRSS, 2 satellites will be launched in geostationary orbit. So you can also learn about geostationary orbit. Okay, two satellites will be launched and they will be spaced around 180-degree apart so that they can provide continuous contact for any spacecraft in the lower Earth orbit. Okay, also it is important to note that this IDRSS will also reduce the dependence on the ground station in tracking satellite. Okay, so the IDRSS will act as a hub as it can receive the commands from the ground station, and in turn it will relay the same to the other satellites. Okay, so next important topic is Gaganyaan. So Gaganyaan is India's first human space flight program, and it will be launched by 2022. Okay, so it's a India's first human space flight program, and it will be launched by 2022. So change here by. And this particular Gaganyaan mission includes two unmanned flights to be launched in December 2020 and July 2021. Okay, so later on it will include one human space flight which will be launched in December 2021, and it is supposed to carry around like 3 astronauts to lower Earth orbit. And the rocket which is used is GSLV Mark 3, and it will be like it will make India the fourth country to send manned mission after the Russia, USA, and China. And we would have read recently news regarding the pad abort test. So this deals with the crew escape system. So if in case any emergency, this pad abort test will help to pull out the crew away from the launch vehicle when a mission has to be aborted. So next important topic is Vyom Mitra. This Vyom Mitra is a humanoid robot that will test flight Gaganyaan. Okay, so it's a ISRO's humanoid robot, and it will help to test flight the Gaganyaan. So as I said, Gaganyaan will be sending two unmanned mission. So in that unmanned mission, this Vyom Mitra, which is a humanoid robot, will be sent. Okay, and this Vyom Mitra is a female humanoid built by ISRO's Inertial System Unit in Tiruvananthapuram. Okay, the major objective of this Vyom Mitra, this humanoid will simulate the human functions required for space before real astronauts take off. Okay, so they will be performing some panel operations on board the spacecraft, and also they will act as a companion to astronauts in future. They will be able to recognize, converse, and also respond with the to the queries of the astronauts. Okay, so Vyom Mitra, you can remember. And next important topic is Aditya 1 and Aditya L1. Aditya 1 was India's first mission to study the moon. The major objective of Aditya 1 was to study the solar corona. Okay, so we'll see what is this corona. Corona is the outermost region of the sun's atmosphere. Okay, and interesting thing about this corona is it has high temperature of more than 1 million degree Kelvin, and it is far higher than the surface of the sun, that is, which is around like 6000 degree Kelvin. So interesting thing about this corona is it has a very high temperature of more than 1 million degree Kelvin. Okay, initially Aditya 1 dealt with only the study of corona. Later on, certain payloads, additional payloads under Aditya L1 is sent to observe corona, chromosphere, and also photosphere of the sun. Okay, and it is also important to remember that corona ejects millions of tons of high speed solar wind that engulfs the entire solar system. So remember this point also. And this Aditya L1 gets its name L1 because of the orbit L1, that is Lagrange point. So next important topic is Good Governance Index. It was launched on Good Governance Day, and Good Governance Day is observed on 25th December, which is associated with birth anniversary of former PM Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Okay, and this Good Governance Index is a nationwide index comparative study of states on governance, and it is carried out by Government of India. Okay, and next important point is, I think this is repeated. Next important point is this GGI takes into consideration around 10 sectors. Okay, so this GGI takes into consideration around 10 sectors and measured on total 50 indicators. Okay, and you can try to, like, no need to remember these 10 sectors, just know that Good Governance Index, it is carried out by the Government of India, and it will act as a nationwide comparative study of states on governance. Okay, and it is also based on the 10 sectors. Okay, next important topic is National Infrastructure Pipeline. So this National Infrastructure Pipeline is an investment plan unveiled by central government recently for enhancing infrastructure in identified sectors for a period of 5 years, that is from 2020 to 2025. So it will help to enhance infrastructure, both economic and social infrastructure projects. Okay, already around $1.4 trillion have been allotted to this national infrastructure pipeline, and it will also help India to become the 5 trillion economy by 2025. The funding will be jointly made by the center, state and private sector, and proportion of which will be 39% center, 39% state, and 22% by the private sector. Okay. Also, it is important to note during the fiscals 2020 to 2025, energy projects, so energy related infrastructure projects will get the more priority, 24%, and then roads to get 19%, and urban to get around 16%, and then railways to get 13%. Okay. So next important topic is Green Growth Equity Fund. This is promoted jointly by India and UK. Okay. And this particular Green Growth Equity Fund will aim to leverage private sector investment to finance investments in the green infrastructure in India. So it will help to leverage private sector investment to finance in the green infrastructure space in India. At the same time, this Green Growth Equity Fund is a joint UK India fund managed by Eversource Capital, and it is specifically designed to promote sustainable energy projects. Okay, the two countries have already invested around 240 million pounds of anchor capital into the fund, and it is expected to rise up to around 500 million pounds from institutional investors. And this Green Growth Equity Fund is a sub fund of National Investment and Infrastructure Fund of India, and we will be dealing with this NIIF in future sessions. Okay, next important topic is hazardous and other waste management and transboundary movement rules. So recently, Ministry of Environment, Forest, Climate Change, it amended the hazardous and other waste rules. So you have to remember, in 2019 it amended the rules. Okay, so we'll be seeing what all are the amendments which have been taken place. So UPSC is interested to ask the recent amendments and updated versions of the acts, so it becomes important. So solid plastic waste has been prohibited from import. So first point what you have to remember is solid plastic waste has been prohibited from import, including the special economic zones and by export oriented units. So initially the plastic waste which were imported through special economic zones and export oriented units were allowed. Okay, so in the 2016 rules, import was allowed from special economic zones and export oriented units. Now this 2019 rule says solid plastic waste has to be prohibited from importing into the country, including SEZ and also export oriented units. Second important point is exporters of silk waste. Now they have been given exemption from requiring permission from the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. So this is to help ease of doing business and also to boost the Make in India initiative. So exporters of silk waste have now been given exemption. Also the electrical and electronic assemblies and components which are manufactured in and exported from India, if they are found defective, can now be imported back into the country within a year or export without obtaining permission. Again, it is aimed for ease of doing business and also boosting Make in India initiative. And finally, industries which do not require consent under Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act and also Air Prevention and Control Pollution Act are now exempted from requiring permission or authorization from hazardous or other waste rules. So initially, even if they did not require consent from the Water and Air Pollution Act, okay, they required hazardous and other waste rules, but now they don't require, so they are exempted. However, any waste or a hazardous waste generated by such industries, they have to be handed over to the authorized actual users, waste collectors and disposal facilities. Okay, so final topic for the day, that is topic number 119 and 120, Basel Convention and Rotterdam Convention, very important. So recently COP was held of both Basel Convention and Rotterdam Convention. So Basel Convention deals with, like, it's an international treaty that was designed to reduce the movement of hazardous waste, okay, between nations, and specifically to prevent transfer of hazardous waste from developed to developing or least developing countries. Okay, so Basel Convention, just know that it deals with movement of hazardous waste. And one important topic what we have to remember is it does not address the movement of radioactive waste. Okay, and the convention is also intended to minimize the amount and toxicity of waste generated. Okay, and remember, US and Haiti are not part to the treaty, so they have signed the convention but they have not yet ratified it, so they are not part to the treaty. Okay, now we will see Rotterdam Convention. So Rotterdam Convention is a multilateral treaty to promote shared responsibilities in relation to importation of hazardous chemicals. Okay, so you have to remember, this deals with hazardous chemicals, this deals with hazardous waste. So it is a multilateral treaty to promote shared responsibilities in relation to importing of hazardous chemical, calls on exporters of hazardous chemicals to use proper labeling, and also it include direction of safe handling, and also inform purchases of any known restrictions or bans. Okay, and US is non-member state of this Rotterdam Convention. See, this Basel Convention and Rotterdam Convention, you can remember with these two things, that Basel Convention is important to control transboundary movement of hazardous waste and their disposal. So it deals with both hazardous waste and disposal, whereas Rotterdam Convention, it requires prior informed consent. I told you right here, first only they have to label, they have to give directions on safe handling, also they have to inform the purchasers, right? So it is a prior informed consent. So simple question, if they ask prior informed consent procedure is dealing with the Rotterdam Convention, and it is for certain hazardous chemicals and also pesticides. Okay, so in 2019 COP, that is Conference of Parties of both Basel and Rotterdam Convention, few important decisions and outcomes were taken. Okay, the one important thing is the technical guidelines on e-waste. So you have to remember about this particular thing. So right now, the e-waste that is dealing with electrical and electronic equipment waste, like reuse, repair, refurbishment, okay, or any failure analysis, they all are considered as waste. Okay, and also inclusion of plastic waste in the prior informed consent, Rotterdam Convention. See, even this hazardous and other waste rules, India decided to totally prohibit import of solid plastic waste. And in COP, the inclusion of plastic waste in the PIC procedure is recently included, and India played a vital role in the outcome of this particular decision. Okay. Also, it is important to note that further Basel Convention has also adopted partnership on plastic. So simple question can come, partnership on plastic is associated with, so it is associated with Basel Convention. Okay, so three things you have to remember. One is the technical guidelines on e-waste. So now any e-waste related like e-waste, like reusing or repairing or refurbishment products, they will be considered as a waste. Usually initially like the developed countries used to dump all these refurbished or repaired products to the least developing countries or low developing countries, so this was increasing their e-waste. So now technical guidelines have been provided on the e-waste, and these kind of reuse, repair and refurbished products will be considered as a waste. Also, next important point is inclusion of plastic waste in the prior informed consent, okay, under the Rotterdam Convention. So all these steps will help prevent the illegal dumping of plastic waste in developing countries and least developed countries. Okay, so these are the topics for today. So we'll meet with 15 more important topics in the next session. Thank you. Do subscribe.